The screen glowed, casting a cool blue light across the room. My eyes fixed on the numbers, a familiar dread coiling in my stomach. It was my latest pay stub. A full week, 40 hours of work, a mountain of effort, and the net pay read 0. Absolutely nothing. Every single dollar earned had been swallowed by taxes, insurance, and deductions I barely understood anymore. It was a stark, brutal reminder of where I stood. This wasn't just a bad week. This was the story of my life, playing out again and again. Just last month, I'd finally managed to squirrel away a small cushion, a tiny bit of hope in my savings account. I felt a fleeting sense of pride, a whisper of control. Then the water heater burst. Not a slow leak, not a drip, but a full-on flood in the utility closet. The repair bill hit like a punch to the gut, instantly wiping out every penny I'd saved. It wasn't a huge sum in the grand scheme of things, but to me, it was everything. It was my small shield against the world, and now it was gone. Just like that, I was back to square one, staring at a blank financial slate, not because I hadn't worked, but because life had simply happened. A quiet resignation settled over me, heavy and familiar. It was the same feeling that crept in after every unexpected expense, every time a bill was higher than I anticipated. A part of me wanted to scream, to rail against the unfairness of it all. But another part, a weary, practical part, just accepted it. This was my normal. This was the cycle. Yet beneath the resignation, a tiny spark of something else flickered. It wasn't anger, not exactly. It was a hard, persistent determination. A silent promise that this couldn't be it. This couldn't be my forever. I thought about how easily it all started. A small need here, a necessary repair there. Each one seemed minor on its own, but together they formed an unbreakable chain. The iron grip of debt often starts with the softest touch of necessity. It begins with the car breaking down, the unexpected medical bill, or even just the rising cost of groceries. These things feel unavoidable, and they are. But they chip away at your foundation, leaving you vulnerable to the next blow. I knew this pattern intimately. I lived it. As I sat there, the glow of the monitor reflecting in my tired eyes, a small notification popped up in the corner of the screen. An email. I almost dismissed it, thinking it was just another piece of junk mail. But the subject line caught my attention, pulling me out of my financial reverie. It was bold, almost audacious. Your path to financial freedom. A cryptic, almost magical phrase that seemed to mock my current situation, yet also offered a strange, unexpected flicker of hope. What could it be? Another scam? Or something more? Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. That email, with its bold promise, felt like a strange echo from a past I was trying to outrun. It made me think about how I even got to this point, staring at a zero balance despite working so hard. It wasn't an overnight thing. It was years of small choices, tiny compromises, and a slow, steady drift into the cycle of living paycheck to paycheck. My life had become a predictable loop. Every morning the alarm would drag me out of bed before dawn. I'd grab a quick, cheap coffee from the machine in my modest apartment building, then join the daily commute. The crowded train, the endless traffic, the same faces staring blankly ahead. It was all part of the routine. My job was demanding, the kind that left you drained but not necessarily fulfilled. I pushed papers, answered calls, and felt like a small cog in a very large, indifferent machine. The salary was just enough to keep my head above water, but never enough to actually swim. After work, I'd come home to that same modest apartment. It wasn't much, but it was mine, for now. Hum of the old refrigerator was a constant soundtrack to my evenings, a subtle reminder of the bills it helped create. Dinner was usually something quick, something easy, something that stretched $1. A trip to the local grocery store was a familiar ritual. I knew the layout by heart, the cheapest brands, the sale items. I'd see Mrs. Henderson, the kindly old woman who always bought the same brand of tea, and Mr. Davies, always arguing with the cashier about a price. These were the small, seemingly insignificant purchases that, when added up over weeks and months, contributed to the constant feeling of financial pressure. Every loaf of bread, every carton of milk, every roll of toilet paper became a small victory or a minor setback, depending on how tight things were that week. The real problem wasn't just the large, unexpected expenses. It was the accumulation of these smaller financial disrespects. There was the car repair bill that hit last year, a new alternator that wiped out the small emergency fund I'd painstakingly built. It wasn't a luxury item, it was a necessity to get to work, so I paid it, feeling the familiar sting of seeing my savings disappear. Then there was the unexpected medical expense, a specialist visit that insurance didn't fully cover. Again, not something I could avoid. These weren't impulse buys, they were life forcing its hand. Each time, I felt like I was running a race where the finish line kept moving further away, and I was always one step behind. The rising cost of living didn't help either. Rent went up, groceries got more expensive, gas prices fluctuated wildly, always seeming to spike right when I needed to fill up. My wage increases, when they happened, were tiny, barely keeping pace with inflation, certainly not enough to get ahead. It was a constant feeling of treading water, trying to stay afloat while the currents grew stronger. Looking back, I could also see the emotional cracks that chipped away at my financial stability. There were the impulse buys, small treats I'd grab after a particularly stressful day at work. A new gadget, a fancier meal than I could afford, a concert ticket. These were temporary escapes, brief moments of relief from the constant hum of underlying financial stress. I'd tell myself, I deserve this, and in the moment, it felt true. But the brief high was always followed by the low of checking my bank balance later. I also avoided budgeting, telling myself it was too complicated, too depressing. It was easier to just hope for the best, to close my eyes and pretend the numbers would magically work out. This avoidance was a subtle erosion of financial confidence, a quiet resignation that it's just how things are. I believed, deep down, that this cycle was my fate, that I would always be scraping by, always living on the edge. That belief, more than any specific bill, was the most damaging thing. It robbed me of hope, making me feel powerless against the tide of financial despair. But that email, that subject line, cracked something open. That audacious subject line, "Your path to financial freedom," finally broke through the wall of resignation I had built around myself. It wasn't just a notification, it was a challenge, a direct confrontation to my long-held belief that my financial situation was unchangeable. I decided right then that I couldn't ignore it, couldn't just dismiss it as another piece of digital noise. This time, I was going to actively seek change. My research began cautiously. I started with simple searches. How to budget, get out of debt fast, saving money tips. The internet, which had previously been a source of distraction and impulse shopping, became my classroom. I devoured articles, watched countless videos, and read personal finance blogs until my eyes ached. It was overwhelming at first, a flood of new terms and concepts: emergency funds, compound interest, passive income, debt snowball. But I persisted, slowly piecing together a coherent strategy. The first step was a strict budget. This wasn't the avoidance I was used to. This was a forensic examination of every single dollar coming in and going out. I tracked everything, from my rent and utilities down to the smallest coffee purchase. It was brutal, revealing just how much money I was unknowingly bleeding each month on things I didn't truly need. The impulse buys, the takeout meals, the subscriptions I rarely used, they all added up to a significant chunk of my income. Identifying these areas for savings was like finding hidden treasure. I cut ruthlessly, prioritizing necessities and long-term goals over instant gratification. Next came debt reduction. My credit card balances, which had felt like insurmountable mountains, now became targets. I focused on the smallest one first, using the debt snowball method I had learned. Every extra dollar I saved went towards paying it down. When that first card was paid off, the feeling of triumph was immense. It wasn't just about the money. It was about proving to myself that I could do it, that I wasn't powerless. That small victory fueled my momentum. Once the high-interest debts were under control, I started building an emergency fund. 3 months of living expenses, tucked away in a separate savings account, became my new financial security blanket. This was the buffer I never had, the safety net that would prevent me from falling back into the cycle when the next unexpected expense inevitably hit. It was a slow process, requiring discipline and patience, but watching that number grow was incredibly motivating. Then came the investments. I wasn't looking for get-rich-quick schemes. My research pointed me towards low-risk, high-yield options, index funds, diversified portfolios, and understanding the power of long-term growth. I started small, contributing a fixed amount each month, letting the magic of compound interest work its slow, steady wonders. It wasn't exciting, but it was consistent, and consistency was what I needed. My initial despair transformed into cautious optimism. The weight of constant financial worry began to lift. I still had bad days, moments of doubt, but they were fewer and further between. The progress was tangible. I could cover my expenses comfortably, save for the future, and even indulge in small planned luxuries without guilt. A nice dinner out, a weekend trip, a new book. These weren't impulse buys. They were rewards, earned through hard work and smart choices. The relief and sense of control were palpable. I no longer felt like a leaf tossed about by financial winds. I was steering my own ship, charting my own course. My journey wasn't about achieving overnight wealth. It was about achieving stability, peace of mind, and the freedom to make choices without the constant shadow of debt. I started sharing my journey, my newfound knowledge, with friends and family, hoping to inspire them, just as that cryptic email had inspired me. Breaking free isn't about magic, but about mastering the simple, powerful truths of money.